Hey guys, I'm Outback Gamer and welcome back to the channel. This is part of the Steam list. 1111 Memories Retold. Elijah Wood is actually one of the voice actors in this game, as you may have noticed. This is a narrative-driven game, which tells a story. I played about an hour and a half of this so far, and it was quite in-depth. The artwork of the fields is quite nice, mixed with the painting style that they've done, especially when you get to like the bunker sort of areas. Now, you follow the story of two characters, Kurt and Henry. Kurt is a engineer during World War One who loses his son, and Henry is a photographer in England who decides to follow in the footsteps of a very charismatic major who is being introduced right now.
Starts like so many others, with a girl who worked in a photography store in a quiet little corner of Toronto, Canada. Julia.
What are you doing, Harry? Are you meant to be playing with that camera?
Throughout the game, you will follow both the characters along their storyline. They both end up enlisting, which is what we're dealing with right now. Now, Kurt enlists to try and find any information on his missing son, while Henry enlists to try to score good points with Julia, his love.
I'm impressed, Harry. You're a real professional with that camera. Listen, I'm heading back to France in a few days. You should join me. Help your country, take a few photos, return home a hero. And remember, Harry, women love a man in uniform.
And it was in that very moment I decided I was going to war.
Both characters are really well told throughout the story. Now, when you're not progressing through the narrative style story, you're solving small puzzles, which isn't unusual for a narrative game. In this puzzle, you literally go from side to side on the boat, ringing bells to try to avoid mines.
I don't expect you to believe.
The other things you do is, as Kurt, because you're an engineer, you fix random things by moving a wire left and right.
But for the first time in my life,
the puzzles are quite good, quite interesting, and quite satisfying when you solve them. That said, it's very normal for any narrative game to have these kind of puzzles in between their story-driven narratives. As again, the grittiness of the story is set in World War One, so you actually really get a decent feel for World War One, especially when Kurt ends up in the trenches by the end of Part 1. Now, I only played at the end of Part 1. An hour and a half was for Part 1, so I assume each part was roughly going to be 2 hours to get through, making it probably about an 8 to 10 hour game to play, which is pretty good these days. Like, you don't find games that have that kind of time on them. I played many of the narrative-driven stories. Bits like this is quite nice. Like, you just played Henry, and Henry was just fixing the guitar for this Indian soldier there. Meanwhile, you're also playing Kurt, who's underground, who's dug tunnels under these guys, and he's been listening to them. Then you come back up with Kurt, and then he's like, oh, help me spot him. Oh, look at that, they're celebrating and dancing. And then you spot for the sniper, who then shoots the soldier in front of Henry, which is one of his only friends that you've managed to make in the game. So it's quite a good bit.
the first time you see someone die, everything shuts down. You're left with thoughts that go round and round.
Some men here relish the opportunity to kill. I do not. Who are we to say who lives and who dies? That is God's will, not ours.
You start to make promises to yourself. Promises to do right. To live well. To be a better person.
So you get a lot of choice to swap between the characters too and follow their stories. Like, at the end of each one, they'll swap to each one and ask you which one you want to follow. I followed Kurt for the most part because I enjoy the story of the war from Germany's side, because when I was younger, most of the games were driven from the Allies side. So most of the time, it's really good to see the war from the German side in the latest games that you can play these days.
I'm getting old, Catherine.
He's writing home for the most part to his wife,
Bombardierung hat
and that's why
aufgehört.
he narrates to himself.
Wir sollten uns mal umsehen.
So eventually, the British attack, and
I'm sorry.
Kurt and Henry end
I
up
don't
in a bit of a
understand
scuffle, and then the characters are actually driven together
What the hell
finally.
was I doing?
And
He was
now
a
I
German.
believe in part
We
2
were at
you'll be
war.
swapping between the characters to solve
Only
puzzles,
somehow.
making it
We weren't
more
enemies.
elaborate puzzles that each character has a specialty to solve. This game will appeal to
found
anyone who
food.
likes a narrative game for
Who can
sure.
say where the
No
next
problem
meal
in
will
that.
come from?
Well, hopefully you've enjoyed a
We
slight
explored
look
a
at
while longer
1111
in
Memories
search of
Retold.
water.
This was a quick look at the game because it's all narrative driven, so it's really up to you whether you enjoy these kind of games. That said, I would have enjoyed playing this all the way through, and I might eventually. Have a good one, guys.